Imagine this. You're wearing your Rolex Submariner, you bump it against a hard surface, and suddenly you see a crack running right across that sapphire crystal. Tiny shards of glass could already be falling inside. And here's the scary part. This happened to a client of mine recently, and he made one huge mistake that cost him a fortune. In today's video, I'm going to show you 3 things you absolutely need to do the moment your Rolex is broken. Do these right, and you could save yourself thousands. Now, before I reveal the mistake my client made, let's start with the very first thing you should do, because time is everything when a Rolex breaks. The moment you notice your Rolex is cracked or damaged, you need to stop the movement. And the fastest way to do that is to pull the crown all the way out. What most people don't realize is that when the watch keeps ticking with a broken crystal, microscopic glass particles can fall into the movement. That's where the real damage happens. Those fragments can scratch the dial, jam the gears, and ruin the hands. Pulling out the crown halts the mechanism instantly, giving you a fighting chance to protect the inside of the watch. I know guys who ignored this step, kept the watch running, and ended up needing not only a crystal replacement, but also a full movement overhaul. That's the difference between a repair that might cost you $200 and one that crosses $1,900 or more. So now the watch is safe for the moment. But the next step is just as critical, and it's where a lot of people go wrong because they either panic or ignore the problem. Now, once the watch is stopped, don't make the mistake of just putting it back on your wrist and pretending everything's fine. You need to visually inspect it, but carefully. Look closely for any condensation under the crystal. If you see signs of moisture inside, or if you recently got the watch wet, you've got an emergency on your hands. But here's the important part. What you don't do matters just as much as what you do. Do not try to dry it with a hairdryer. Don't shake it, and definitely don't open it yourself. I know it's tempting to try a quick fix, but amateur moves like that often make the damage worse. The best thing you can do is stop wearing it, set it aside safely, and prepare it for professional repair. Which leads us directly to the third and most important step, because no matter how careful you are, the repair itself is what will determine whether your Rolex goes back to perfect condition or loses its value. Contact a trusted watchmaker and do it smartly. You've got 2 main options. Send it to a Rolex service center, or go with a highly reputable independent. Rolex service centers are the best. They'll disassemble the entire movement, ultrasonically clean every part, replace worn components, lubricate everything, and pressure test it to restore water resistance. But the downside is, it can take 4 to 6 weeks, and the bill isn't small. A cracked sapphire crystal replacement, plus a full service, usually lands you a bill of more than $2,000. And if the dial or hands are damaged, it climbs even higher. Independents, on the other hand, can sometimes be faster and more affordable, especially if they're authorized to use Rolex parts. But don't just hand it to the first guy who says he can fix a Rolex. You need to vet them carefully. Make sure they actually have access to genuine parts, and ask them up front whether you can opt out of extras like polishing if you're dealing with a vintage piece. Some collectors prefer keeping the original character of the watch, and Rolex service centers are known to take the best care. Now, let me show you why these steps matter so much with a real example. My client cracked the dial on his Submariner, but instead of pulling out the crown, he just kept wearing it. By the time he brought it in, glass had already scratched the dial and jammed the date wheel. The service center had to replace not just the crystal, but also the dial and hands. That repair ended up costing him well over $2,000, and all of it could have been avoided with that first simple step. If you found this helpful, share it with a fellow Rolex owner, because one day this information could save their watch. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss tips like this right here.